Well, it's a very modest start, but I am starting to think about staging the front porch for spring. And while I am waiting for temperatures to warm up, plants to come into bloom, and other things to become available, I thought you might enjoy watching this old video and get some styling ideas for your front porch from my old home at the Fairy Tale House.
Well, here's my question of the day for you. What is your favorite way to refresh and revitalize your own porches, whether it's your front porch or your back porch, whether it's seasonally or for whatever reason? Here are 3 ways that I like to do it, and now let's get started. Well, it's just me and those chattering, annoying squirrels out here on this Palm Sunday before Easter, and I'm getting ready to kind of do a little bit of a refresh on the front porch and show you 3 really easy things that you can do also, no matter what your porch looks like, but that you can do to kind of freshen it up a little bit and transition through the seasons, and some different ways that over time I will be restyling it, if that makes any sense. A heads up, just like at the end I do a fashion epilogue because so many of you requested that information, but I know all of you don't want it, so we put it at the end. So if you are not interested, you don't have to waste your time watching it. But we're going to start doing the same thing with a lot of the products that I use. I know some people feel it's a little bit too commercially when I share which products that are my favorites, and I'm sensitive to that. But I also know so many of you ask that I also want to be responsive to those requests as well. So what we will do is we'll continue to kind of put a link where you can find it in the course of the video, but then again at the end, if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to, but at the very end, we'll try to do an epilogue on a product epilogue, if you will, on what products I used with the appropriate links. That way, if you don't want to know about them, if you don't want to hear about them or whatever, there'll just be more detailed information at the end and just a brief mention during the video. So watch to the end to get the whole 911, no, not 911, the whole 411. The whole 411, all of the information you want. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that I'm going to be doing. First of all, I think the porch is really looking pretty, and it's getting ready for Easter, and you can see that a lot of the pots and a lot of the bulbs that I potted up last fall, look at this gorgeous white container. Isn't it beautiful? I really think it's just gorgeous, and I love the fact that I found some white geraniums, just regular zonal pelargoniums. I found those on sale. And then if you look out into the yard, we're probably, Stuart, I'm going to guess about a week away from peak. So I'm thinking if the wind isn't too bad this week, that it will peak around Easter. So I'm excited about that, and obviously we'll do a walkabout so you can see everything that's come into bloom and what is in bud and bloom now and what's going to happen. Okay, so let's start out with an easy way that you can refresh your porch or your patio. And in my case, I showed you that I put some more of the boxwood balls that Stuart thinks all boxwood have to be in balls. But it's my fault. Okay, but you can see that they can grow out and you can use them in their free form. But I want a little tighter look on the porch. And so this one I transplanted from the front beds. I believe it's a winter gem. I transplanted it from the front beds where there are too many of them, and I'm going to show you guys how I prune this. And then I also transplanted this one that now has an Easter bunny climbing it, and I'm going to prune this gently into kind of a cloud form. And this is one that I had limbed up last year. Stuart, if we can find it, let's see if we can find the video where I did that. But now I want this to have a little bit softer form, and then I'll show you a few other things that we're going to do. Okay, so starting out, I've got my favorite Barnell pruners with their pointy tips so that I can really do exacting pruning. So I've got this here, and you know what I'm going to do? This is very heavy, you guys, so I'm going to move this out a little bit Stuart, is that separate enough from this other pot so you'll be able to see what I'm doing? And now with these pruners, I am going to clip off some of this and turn it into a stronger spherical form. Now, some of you will ask, well, can you take any of these cuttings and root them for boxwood topiary or to spread around in your own landscape? And definitely you can. And sometimes these make really good candidates for topiary because they're already in a long state, potentially a tall state with a strong central stem that makes a good lollipop topiary. So I'm starting out, and because it's pretty easy for me to clean up these clippings on the porch, I don't have a tarp or anything. Plus I want to select out which of these I might want to save to make a topiary out of. Now this one, when it was growing in the landscape, already had kind of a globular form. So if yours is not already in something of a form like this, then you just do this, use the same technique to start transforming it. And this is one of those where you clip and you assess, and sometimes on this one I have, it looks like the ugly face forward. Stuart, can you come over? I don't know if you can come over here to see me clipping on this side.
I've been getting kind of a good angle, right?
Okay, so you'll be able to see.
You know,
Okay, I just want.
Definitely a ball.
Okay, so you can see the silhouette of it and and the form, and then also it's really important. I think sometimes equally as important at the top is that on the bottom you clip enough because you want to get some of that differentiation between the ball and the pot, and that's what makes it look like a really good kind of, it's, even though it's just a simple ball, it's still a topiary form. Okay, so okay. Stuart, am I whipping it into shape?
You are.
I am.
The most satisfying cut was the giant branches on the side.
On the side? Yeah, there's always those pivotal cuts that I think are, there's Stuart's giggle.
It was just noticeably satisfying.
I know, it is just, it is so cathartic. It really is. It is just so cathartic. And the thing about pruning is that it's not only shaping it in the moment, so it's just instant gratification, which I just love, but also it will encourage bushiness. So even though this is already pretty thick, it will nevertheless get even denser as it grows out. So I think that doesn't look too bad. And you always have to kind of assess it from a 360. Okay, so I've got that. Let me look. Do I like that?
This one came off the protege?
This one, no, this wasn't one of the ones in the front yard, Stuart. I don't know if you remember that it was too crowded in the front.
Okay.
And I took one of them out. Okay, so as long as I've got my clippers, and this is the time you do it, guys. When you see this new growth coming out, this is the time you do it. So on your front porch, you may have boxwood, you might have dwarf Yopon hollies, you might have arborvitaes, you might have sweet olive, you might, who knows, depending on where you live, you might have yews, you might have hollies. It all depends on what your evergreen selection that you prefer is. But the nice thing is that these will be here year round. They will look good in the summer. This faces south, and these are tough plants. And I don't have to spend a lot of money filling these with seasonal color every year. I could if I wanted to, but I don't have to because they are just beautiful like this, and they will endure through all 4 seasons, and they've got wonderful 4-season interest. So I like that. And these will be the happier for this haircut. And just notice how these pruners cut like butter. They just really are wonderful. Now, you may ask, well, how long will these stay in pots? They will stay in pots for years. I've had some in pots for, gosh, 15 years. Sometimes I have to root prune them. I do try to top dress them with compost periodically to make sure they have the nutrients they need. But barring some extreme weather event, like the one that we had last year ago in February, and by the way, there's been a steady stream of cars by today, haven't there, Stuart? Yes. We have met so many people who have come by to see the front yard, and one gentleman just came by and was visiting, asking if he could take some pictures. And we were talking about that epic cold storm or cold front that we had a year ago in February, and he said, what did he say, Stuart? One day it was
-11 and one day -15.
And one day -15, but in between there it got above freezing. And then
2 days later, 72.
And then 2 days later, 72. Okay, so that's why when I say weather whiplash, that's what I'm talking about. But it's also why the toughest of plants, like these boxwood balls, it's even why the toughest of these plants sometimes succumb. I've got one more cut that I'm going to make here, Stuart. And this is rough. You guys might see some things that still need to be trimmed, but I'm going to, this is another one of those products I love because it makes cleanup real easy. So I'm going to just kind of get these out of the way. That's good enough for right now, but this Works blower is lightweight enough. You saw me just use it with one hand. So if you have a problem with holding anything heavy or just holding anything in general, it's a good tool to have. Okay, so now I'm going to look at which side is really prettier. And this is pretty uniform 360, but I'm just going to kind of move that back in place, and I like the fact. How's that look, Stuart?
Good. I'm trying to give them a front view too.
Okay, a front view like this.
So they've got the front now.
Okay, so you can kind of see what the front looks like. So that is my number one really easy way to refresh a front porch. Either prune those that you have already potted and planted on your front porch, or pot and plant an evergreen if you don't already have one. If you've got a symmetrical porch, then I could have done 2 evergreen balls here. That would have been, I think, very effective. If you've got a really formal entrance that's very symmetrical, likewise, you could do 2 on each side. So that is my number one way to really refresh and update your front porch. The second way is what I just call plop and place. Now, I am a huge fan and a friend of Klaus Dalby, who is, they call him the Martha Stewart of Denmark. Many of you are familiar with him. He is just, he's the Monet of gardening. His ability to work with colors and container plantings is just brilliant. And by the way, he has a book out now called Container Plantings. I wrote a recommendation on the back cover for it, as he did for me. Thank you, Klaus. And he puts together combinations and vignettes of container plantings that's brilliant. Now, one thing that I think separates what he does maybe from what I can do here is his spring and summer weather is far more gentle than mine. So he can put together massive collections of plants and things, and they will endure for a pretty long time, whether they are potted bulbs or they're tons and tons of annuals or things of that nature. Really brilliant displays. Shows that he puts on, floral shows that he puts on. For me, for example, if I tried to do something like he did, all pansies and all bulbs and things of that nature, it wouldn't last long enough to really be worth the effort and also the expense. So what I do is I try to use splashes of those things that then I can interchange and take out when they're past their prime. That way I'm thinking about the next season while I already have this show in place. Does that make sense, Stuart? Okay. So for example, right now the window box still looks nice, but you can see that the Carnegie hyacinths, these were color blends bulbs. I had sailboat daffodils, those are about finished. I also had some, what else did I have? Harlem, City of Harlem hyacinths, those are all finished. And because of that, and also because of the wind, they really didn't last as long as I would have liked. But the pansies still look good. So here's my second way of refreshing your front porch, by plopping and planting something either temporarily or for the coming season. So for example, here I've got lots of bulbs. Now if I wanted to, I could keep these bulbs in place and some of them would come back next season or next year, next spring. But I don't want to, partly because it was beautiful, but the beauty wasn't long lasting. It wasn't enduring. And so because of that, if you're asking the question, well, what do I do with them when they're finished? This is what I do. I'm going to pull them out. And then these I will plant. I can replant these back because they're not tulips. They will come back. I can replant these in my minor bulb bed in the backyard a little bit later, and that way I won't waste those bulbs. Or I could gift them to someone else. So you see that I've already done lots of soil amendment when I planted these bulbs last fall. Okay, so for the most part, I dislodged and uprooted a couple of pansies, but for the most part, these pansies stayed in place and they will continue to look good until they get too hot. Now, I told you earlier that I had made a notation in my garden journal that I wanted to use lots of this light blue plumbago. Okay, there you can see this one's already coming into bloom. I'm going to be fine. Our last frost date is April 15th. We ain't got nothing other than maybe high temperatures on the horizon for a while. So I am safe to go ahead and plant this plumbago, this blue plumbago here is what I am planting. And I got this from an herbalist at the herb festival I was at last weekend. I like this because it is in like a 4-inch pot, so I can easily tuck it in here amongst these pansies. If I had it, I might put some slow release fertilizer in here, but I can add that later if I so choose. And what I like about this is that, I'm gonna put this one in over here, I think. What I like about this is that when it does bloom, it will not only bloom beautifully in the heat of summer, but once it starts blooming, and this is a wonderful root ball, by the way. It's kind of a loose root ball. And I'm putting that in there. I am loosening it just a little bit so the roots don't grow in a circle. I can kind of groom this and tidy this up a little bit. But I'm tucking it in here. And if it does bloom early on, this blue color will just look gorgeous with the pansies. Isn't that a miracle, Stuart? Isn't that just incredible? So there you go. And this, by the way, this will get large and this will really, really spread. Now I can do that up and down the expanse of the entire window box with more plumbago that I have. Now because I am just consumed with incorporating edibles and ornamentals together, Then I also, at this herb farm, I bought some oregano or oregano or oregano, hot and spicy. I got this at an herb farm. And the thing about oregano, Stuart, here, I'm going to stick this in your nose. It smells great, doesn't it?
It does.
It smells great, and it's in a wonderful bushy form. But what I like about this is because this is a southern exposure, this can really take the heat, you guys. So that's a great tip. So now I'm going to plop and place it in the front of the window box to start spreading across the frontal expanse, because ultimately it's going to be too hot for these pansies and I'm going to have to remove them. So I want these guys to get a start before the heat sets in. I've got more bulbs here. These guys I can transplant to the back. These are in here because what did I do, Stuart? I put some mentholatum on this to keep the squirrels from digging, and it worked great for a while, but I didn't replenish the mentholatum, and they had their way, and they dug up some stuff. You have to be ever vigilant, Stuart. Okay, I'm gonna move this guy around, but see right in here? I'm gonna make a mess, but see, this is really good quality soil in here, you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna take one of these 4-inch and I'm gonna plant it right here, and I'll also plant some in other areas, but this one, I'm gonna go ahead and install in here. And I would not put much fertilizer on this oregano because they actually like soil being kind of lean. This is something to watch out for, you guys. This one is a little bit too root bound, but I'm going to root prune it just like this to not only encourage it to start putting out new feeder roots, but also so that I can get it out. I can get it out of the pot. And then I'm going to be rather brutal here in loosening up this root ball. Because again, if I don't break this up, it's just going to stay compacted. And if I should remove it.
Now I can smell it more.
Now you can?
I didn't smell it as much earlier.
Okay, there's a little breeze that came by. So I'm really going to break this up because I want those roots to permeate the soil around it. Okay. So, and I see some past bulb roots in here. And this is going to be so tough, you guys.
Now you're pointing it forward again?
I'm pointing it forward. Thank you, Stuart. You're so good. Okay, see, did you see I planted it on an angle? Because it doesn't know it's up from down, and it immediately will begin cascading over the side. And eventually, this is always kind of irksome at first because there's always a little bit too much potting soil in here, but this will be remedied. You can see how it's been remedied here, Stuart, because all of this starts growing into it and then it begins to hold the soil in place. Do you see what I mean?
I think so.
Okay, so I'm going to plant this here. And then later, I won't ask you guys to help me with this right now, but later I will plant some in the foreground here, up and down it. And I am transitioning one plant that's past its prime out, and I am transitioning another plant in so that before the heat hits, it can really get established and start putting on that growth. So that's my number 2 way of revitalizing and refreshing the window box, still keeping it full and presentable and pretty in the process. Okay, so that's my second way. Another way to plop and place is, and this is kind of one of my solutions to, I love the complexity and the color spectrum that Klaus gets in his displays. But again, some of them are too short-lived for me to be worth the effort. But what I can do is take plants that I'm going to put someplace else in the landscape later, and I can use them as a seasonal expression when I want this whole area to really put on a temporary show for the season. And in this case, it's the Easter season and the spring season. So I've got one of these beautiful Oakland hollies, golden variegated Oakland hollies, that are going to replace some things that I lost in the great freeze of last year. The great freeze of 2021. And I'm going to put that in the back, but you can see here how I have used it. And this is one of the Kobo baskets in my QVC line. And so all I did was just take one of these and I plopped it in here where it form fits in this basket. And I have the temporary contribution of it to this purple and yellow vignette, and yet I won't have to be a slave to something, really to watering it a lot. And when this vignette is kind of done and I'm going into summer, then I can remove this, I can transplant it in the back, and it will be beautiful. So what do you think about that idea, Stuart?
Wonderful.
Okay, so that's another plop and plant idea. Now I know some of you will be disappointed if I don't show you how I kind of plan to prune this, and I'll come back and clean up all of this a little bit later.
Well, it's like a bonsai plant.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like a or bonsai as we have been corrected. But and I want to show you something else here too, Stuart, if you can do a close up. So I told you earlier in the year that I was concerned that this might have spider mite because of the speckling on that leaf. Can you see that, Stuart?
Yeah, don't touch it so it sits still.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So I was concerned that might be spider mite. It is not spider mite. It was basically just freezing blasts of the capillary structure inside the leaves. That may not be the correct term, but I noticed it on lots of the leaves throughout the garden. It got very warm, and then it got very cold, and I think that just blasted out and caused some speckling in some of the foliage of our evergreens and even our flowering shrubs. And I have had numerous conversations with other gardeners who said they experienced the same thing. Now this one I'm pruning gently, but I'm not going to prune it quite as heavily as the other. I want it to be a little bit more of a loose form.
Very much Bob Ross pruning.
Like
just happy little clouds, happy little trees.
Well,
Just
I
feels
haven't.
Like it's very similar.
So for our viewers who are too young to know who Bob Ross is, Stuart, would you care to expand on
Well,
that?
he just painted happy little trees. And
Okay,
these
but-
are happy little clouds.
Yeah, but I mean, who was he?
Well, he was a painter on PBS for a million years.
Yeah, for many, many years, and
extremely peaceful.
yeah, it's very zen. It's very meditative and zen, and I think now.
He's kind of a what do they call it? Like there's like a cult following.
Yeah, and I think some of his pieces are really kind of go for a lot.
Happy trees.
Okay, so see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of, and I'm doing some of it on an angle a little bit, so there'll be a nice gradation from the street. And this plant likes this. It likes being pruned because it encourages new growth and bushiness.
Do you ever talk to your plants?
Do I ever talk to them? I curse at them. I don't talk to them, but I will say this. In my head, I do have inner conversations with them. I'm not so old that I'm actually talking out loud to them, but I do have inner conversations with them because all of my plants very much have personalities and they have gender. So,
That's neat.
yeah, so they have gender. So do you want to know what I think the gender of this
That's
is?
what I was about to ask.
This to me, for whatever reason, is a wise old grandmother.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I can see it.
yeah, it's kind of a wise old grandmother. And that's the personality that I have projected.
Oh, those are the best cuts.
Yeah, you love those, don't you? You just love those.
Well, I'm all about the visuals. So I mean, yeah.
Well, the other thing is I know lots of you out there are watching this and you're going, oh, I see something. Cut that, cut that.
Well, I'm trying to find it for him, to be honest.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
exactly what I'm
okay,
thinking.
yeah.
I got one. Maybe you'll
Yeah.
get to. Then she'll get to this one.
And you have to do the backside too, you guys.
We're all just waiting on you to find the one we're headed towards. Boom.
Is it that one?
That was
Okay.
it.
Well, some of this, gosh, you're hard to please, Stuart. Okay, some of this I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to do from the backside too. So I wanted to kind of show you that because I know that you'll say, "Oh, I wish you would have gone ahead and done that," because it's so gratifying, and we feel unsatisfied if we don't.
Yeah, it's very much a Zen garden, exact same thing. Bonsai
Yeah,
Zen garden.
yeah.
So.
And I keep getting my skirt hooked on my pruner, Stuart, so don't try to look up my skirt.
We have not, none of us have seen up your skirt.
Okay. So, and again, I can do that on the back side, and I will, but immediately now I have a little bit more definition here. And this is the other reason I love it, it's gonna force out even more new growth. So even more of this fresh green. This is the time of year it wants to come out. And so that is, I guess that's kind of another extension of my pruning thing. Now, of my pruning thing, of number one. I'm going back. Stuart and I are a little bit giddy. We have tried to shoot this video for a while, and so many people have driven by to say hello and see the yard that that we have been very pleasantly interrupted, but we've kind of lost our, I don't know, we've lost track. Okay, I want to show something over here. Excuse me, Stuart. So this would be my third way to refresh and energize and make over your porch, and that is address pots that are just fine, but they might need some zhuzhing. That is the official gardening term, zhuzhing, but they might need some zhuzhing. Okay, so this lost a boxwood in the Great Freeze, and I have not yet replaced it. Two of them made it. These have been here for a very long time, but one of them did not, and I've got one I had this in a pot and it's not completely symmetrical, and so I think since I'm trying to reduce the number of my pots, I'm going to put it in here. Now this is a lesson in seedling recognition. So Stuart, do you know what that seedling is? No? Okay. That was it.
So they can guess.
Okay, that was kind of a trick question. Now, okay, this has its first true leaf coming out. Now, can you tell what it is? It's a heart-shaped leaf. Okay, these are, you don't know. Okay, these are little red buds. These are little baby red buds. I recognize it, and then that's a little baby red bud leaf. And by the way, Martha Stewart was in Oklahoma City this past week. She was here on Tuesday. She ate at one of our favorite restaurants. She ate at Cheever's, Stuart. She was here to, she was talking to a business group. She wasn't here to see me. But she talked to a business group, and she went and she went to the Oklahoma City Memorial, and so that was wonderful. And but she did an Instagram post on her way home on her private plane, and guess what she had in the seat next to her? Not a boxwood.
A red bud?
Yes, she had, and they were all in bloom. I don't know how many she had, but she was bringing back all sorts of beautiful Eastern.
Are they hard to find
Eastern.
other places?
Oh no, I don't think so. But maybe where she lives, here I think they're our state tree, and they're easy to find here. And in fact, in my backyard, you could probably. You saw how callously I just pulled up those two little ones, because I've got 30,000 more that have gone to seed and germinated in my backyard. Yeah. Okay, so this now I am going to, and this is another way to steal from Peter to pay Paul.
Are you about to do the banging thing?
Okay, Stuart wants me to do the banging thing. So this is how you can, this is another great tip. violence in the garden. Violence in the garden. Because I want to reduce the size of this root ball, and I've got plenty of good soil in there to kind of give it a start. I'm going to, again, tease these roots out so they won't grow in a circle.
Boy, I smell the roots more than anything today.
Really?
Every time you start messing with the roots, I can smell stuff.
You can smell, and this is a good earthy smell. Okay, so I'm going to tuck this in here. And it may look like it's a tight fit, but ultimately this will even be a bigger environment for this to grow in than it was growing in before. Now, some of you may notice this looks like it's a slightly different variety. I actually don't think it is. It's just that this one has been growing in a different conditions and has been pruned a little bit more. So I'll just put that soil back on. What is that? That is some kind of, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of fun little rock. It's a treasure.
Is it green on one side?
Well, it's I don't know what it is.
It's got some sort of coating.
Maybe I had it in here as drainage or
Gotta be
something.
like the inside of a pot and the
Yeah,
outside of a
the
pot.
side, I don't know. It's a mystery, Stuart. It is a mystery.
It's a treasure.
Okay, it's a treasure. It's a hidden treasure. Okay, so then I will water this in. The other way, and the last way that I am refreshing existing pots is it doesn't take any time at all, you guys, to pull out stuff that is dead or dying or past its prime. So I had some carex in here, and I had hoped I'd get it to regenerate, and I just don't think it survived that winter. It might, but it's going to be a while before it looks good. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pull this out. It's dead and brown. Stuart, more violence in the garden, because I don't want to waste any of that soil. So that will just fall back in place. Add a little bit more there. Oops, sorry, Stuart. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this one out too. And later I will come back, and because I want to kind of refresh.
I have a weird question.
Uh-huh. There are no weird questions,
Well, like,
Stuart.
obviously, short root things are very easy to pull out, but I have all kinds of little maple tree seeds that have started in my yard, and in a very small size, they're already impossible to pull out of the ground.
It's because they've got probably deep tap roots, and you probably want to do it right after it rains. That's when you want to do it. I know it's hard, but at a certain point, you can just, if you can't pull them, you can cut them at the base. They may sprout back again because the root system is still viable. Just keep kind of cutting them back, and over time you are denying it its food source, and they will die. But the easiest thing to do is just treat them like a weed. Sometimes you can even transplant them if you want them to go in a certain spot. This brick is here because it was holding something in place. Okay, so now I'm going to water that in, and I'm going to feed this arborvitae by top dressing it with some beautiful compost. Okay, so Stuart, those are my 3 ways that I refreshed. I refreshed my front porch, and when it's all blown and pretty, we will put a picture of what it looks like when it's finished at the end, a still. So I need to get to work. Thank you guys for helping me refresh, revitalize, and do this little mini makeover on my spring front porch. And thank you, Stuart. Well, for those of you that want detailed product information, here are the products that I used today. And by the way, all of these are in the description below. So if you're watching on your YouTube channel, on the right-hand side, Stuart, is it? On the right-hand side, there's a little arrow, and if you click on it,
On your phone. Yes.
on your phone, or it will click on it, and it will expand the information, my description of the video, and at the bottom of that, there will be all of the links. But Stuart,
drop-down menu.
A drop-down menu, and Stuart will also put the links at the top if you can't find them.
Yeah,
so this way it just kind of, it keeps me from sounding like a commercial on the front end, but it also keeps me from having to really respond to a lot of comments about what the sources of different kinds of things are, some of my favorite things. So you guys know absolutely one of my favorite things are these Barnell pruners, and I will put a link. I don't know if they're available on Amazon right now because they are kind of hard to find sometimes, but they are well worth it to be patient and try to find them. Another product that I demonstrated or showed today were these Oakland hollies, these golden Oakland hollies. And these are a Southern Living plant, and I love the fact that they're evergreen. I love hollies, and I just like the fact that they can really brighten up a dark space. And let me see, what other products did I use today? That's all I think that I mentioned today. But again, as always, if you want to know some kind of product, you can send me an inquiry. But I'm going to start posting at the end the different products that I mentioned so that you guys can easily find the links. So there you go. Well, if you've held on this long, here is your fashion epilogue. So my sunglasses are Ray-Bans, Ray-Ban Aviators, probably my favorite pair of sunglasses. My dress, I love it. It's got an under layer. It's very cool. It's very loose. And what I love about it is I can work out in the yard in it, but I can also dress it up or dress it down. And I also like the way it can be worn in the spring, summer, or fall. I've worn it underneath a sweater, again, a long brown cardigan. It's just really a fun piece, and I got this off of Poshmark, so it's secondhand. My booties are from Forever 21. I've had these forever. They're very, very comfortable, and I like the way they look with little, just little sundresses like this, I guess. My earrings are bird feathers, and these were from a store, one of my favorite stores in Salida, Colorado. Sadly, it's not there anymore. It was called Currents, and I just really love them. And I think that's, oh, and my necklace, I think I got my necklace at TJ Maxx years ago. Not a lot of bracelets going on today because I'm going to be doing some planting, and I just didn't need them today to get in the way. So there you go. There's my fashion apple.